Hi, my name is Madison Hearn, and today I will be discussing an interview I conducted on my topic I have been researching for the past few months, which is prostitution being legalized in society and whether its impacts can be positive or negative. So, prostitution being legalized is fought over moral beliefs in society, and it involves a lot of safety for women across the globe. And the interview I interviewed Professor Timothy Riley, who is a criminal justice professor at Columbia College, and prior to that was working in a correctional facility for 20 plus years, and 12 of those years he was a warden at both male and female correctional facilities, and he's dealt and seen with a lot of people impacted by criminal charges. Have you ever dealt with any criminals coming into the facility that came from cases of prostitution or brothels?
In the Department of Corrections, and I checked again this morning just to see, but prostitution is an offense that appeared in a lot of offenders' histories over time, but it wasn't the primary reason that they came to prison. In South Carolina, prostitution is a misdemeanor. So it's not the kind that's going to get them enough time to send them to adult prison. They may end up in jail or some kind of diversion program for that. So that you would see that a lot in the females, because particularly those that had drug charges. Sometimes they engaged in prostitution as a method of making money to buy drugs. What we're seeing more and more, though, is that's evolving, and that you see more folks, human trafficking. I'm sure you've heard about that, read about that, and that's where you're getting a lot of folks that run away from home. You get a lot of folks that are drug users, abusers, are in bad relationships, and usually it's men that are taking advantage of them, and they are pimping them out so that they can make money. But prostitution isn't per se the reason that they come to prison.
So do you think that prostitution, if it were legalized, could be ethical in society?
Well, there are some states where it is legalized, just like Nevada, and it's considered a service industry. So the benefit for Nevada, I guess, is that because it's a service industry, they have a lot of regulations on it. So they're very concerned with the health of the folks that engage in that kind of behavior. They have certain places of business. The regulation is extremely high, and the state gets a cut of it. I think the moral issue in the South is something that we don't ever have to worry about it being legalized in South Carolina. Just because this is part of the Bible Belt, and people won't go for that kind of behavior here. If it were legalized, it would probably improve.
So in relation to the last question of the interview, many supporters of decriminalized prostitution agree with Professor Riley and believe it could lower the crime rate because it will be allowing legal services just like legalizing marijuana, so there can be safe regulations and protections against it, whereas when it is illegal, a lot more crimes are committed because they are doing it hush-hush, and it adds to brothels and other illegal things. And as according to the American Criminal Law Review, a new theory among unintended consequences of criminalization has the potential to push previously unstructured, independent, and ad hoc behaviors to become structured and organized. And what this quote means is that illegalizing prostitution can only make bad people stronger because it gives them a industry that they can provide that the government and safer options cannot provide. If it were legalized, do you think it would decrease the criminal it would decrease the crime rate?
I think it would have an impact on the trafficking part of it, the human trafficking. Although that's how a lot of immigration occurs. People are bringing them in illegally and using them illegally for human trafficking, and it would put a dent in it if it wasn't, if there were other options for getting that service. That's what you're seeking. It's kind of like gambling, not a lot of gambling that goes on in this state. You can buy a lottery ticket, but you can't gamble on sports or anything like that legally.
Yeah.
So it would impact it some, I'm sure. I don't know if it would totally do away with folks that were looking for it.
With Professor Riley's interview in mind, people against decriminalizing prostitution largely view prostitution as it could potentially normalize the act of buying sex, which, while it debases women and it is viewed as ethically immoral for women, it can also debase men by assuming that they are entitled to access women's bodies for sexual gratification, which is true to the extent because it assumes that men have a right to having sex and have a right to get whatever they want and be able to live out their sexual fantasies. However, many women will use prostitution and not be the prostitutes. There's a lot of male prostitutes also, and a lot of people who support prostitution believe that it just allows two consensual adults to live out whatever they want to do rather than causing more harm, because most of the time in illegal prostitution it is not always consensual because these people are brought here as immigrants and have no other choice, or they are kidnapped. So irregardless of whether you are pro-prostitution being legal or against it, it is a continuous battle for the government to fight brothels and illegal services. It is a continuing success among black markets and the underworld of society.